Okay. Thank you very much for joining us and coming for this session on GMS certification reports and exports. We're going to keep this to an hour and cover what we can. Let's see. There we go. So the purpose of this session, first of all, the session is for people who are experienced with GMS. If anybody on the call is a GMS novice, either has just started using GMS or has never used GMS, while you're certainly welcome to sit in and listen in, if you've never been in the system, this probably is not really the session for you, and given the knowledge level of most everyone else who's on the call, we won't be able to go back and simplify it for you. That's something you can work out with your regional sports director to get some additional information on. But the purpose is explicitly to look at and to show folks how to create reports and do exports for the coach sports certification, coach training, and the coach concussion certification. And then if we have some time, also we can show you athlete medical and volunteer background, how we can do those. And we have, for each of these items, a pre-programmed report or export that you can utilize. We'll send this deck to you, this slide deck, probably tomorrow morning after we get the session recorded or posted for as a webinar. And you'll have all the things here with the different report names and such, so don't worry too much about furiously writing them down at home. You can pay attention to the content and get the sense of where things are going. So, first, a clarification on reports versus exports. Reports are as an example, for those of you who received the reports I sent out about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, shortly after the training registration deadline. They're a PDF format. The report content itself is all formatted for you, and when you run them in GMS, they initially print to the screen, and then you can save them as a PDF, or if your connection is working well, you can print them directly at home to your home computer. As compared to exports, exports is exactly what it says. It's exporting the data that you tell it to export to either an Excel file, an Access file, or you can use the DBase format, the DBF file. Those, if you've done any of those, many folks haven't, but if you have done any of those, this is where you need to designate a file name before you can run it. It literally exports it into those the format that you designate. Almost everybody uses Excel, but into that format, into that structure or that file type, but there is no formatting that's carried over. You'll get column headings, but that's pretty much it, which can be a little challenging for some folks, but for folks who are familiar with those with Excel or Access or DBase, again, mostly Excel, it gives you a lot of opportunity to format and redo the sorting and so on down the line, unlike the reports that are noted above, where you have very limited ability to adapt them. They're pretty much once you've exported them. That said, and we're not going to go into this tonight, but reports and exports you can absolutely customize significantly. There's a couple folks, a couple GMS users who are quite good at that. That's not the purpose of tonight. So if someone asks a question that goes down the road, I'll just let you know. It's not that we're trying to keep secret or whatever, but that gets significantly more complicated and more challenging, and we want to keep this so that everybody on the phone can walk away and be able to, from the session tonight, and be able to run these reports themselves. As a note also, typically a specific report or export can only be run within a games, or it can only be run from outside of a games. Not both. So as we go through here, it'll designate, as we look at each different type of report or export, each different type of information, it'll indicate what the whether it's from within a games or outside of a games. And I'll actually walk through in GMS for you and show you what that all looks like so you can have a sense of that. So, coach sports certification. This is the new thing are new in terms of how we're recording it and actually adhering to it. Again, the Coach Sport certification has been a requirement for more than 25 years. There's two things that we have designed here. I should also say, and we'll take your feedback afterwards, after you've had a chance to utilize these, we can, for you, customize some of these as well. If there's some information that's missing or if there's some simple things that we can tweak, we can make some adjustments for you. I would say that probably is something we wouldn't do until after summer games unless there's a critical need for that, and be looking at things primarily that would be useful to all GMS users or most GMS users. If it's something that you need specifically for your area, that's something that you can do on your own, or we may be able to help you with that, but that would unfortunately be somewhat lower priority compared to things that would be applicable and beneficial to virtually all or most users. So there's a report that we have designed, and both of these are for outside of the games, on sports expirations, and then also there's an export for that as well. So we can see what the difference is. So for the SOMD reports, let me open up or pull up GMS. Now, GMS here may look a little different in terms of some of the options that I have, as I have a somewhat higher level of access. But everything that I'm doing here, you should have access to as well. So, as is noted here on the screen, we're going to use the report called Coach Sport Expirations, and it's located inside the SOMD Core Reports category. To do that, we're going to go to the Reports section and then go to Advanced Custom. So with that, we go to Reports here and then click on Advanced Custom. Don't go down. There's all sorts of other things here. There's certification expirations and so on down the line. And you're certainly free to explore those. But this particular report, it's best access going through this Advanced Custom to access it. So you click on that. Okay. Then, as is noted, the next step, you're going to go to Load Settings, which is in the upper left corner of that should be of the report screen. So edit that right there. And then you look for this report name. It's either going to be at the top section or under the category of SOMD Core Reports. So let's do that. We're going to go to Load Settings, and then we're looking for the Coach Sport Expirations. I believe that's what we called it, right? Yep, Coach Sport Expirations. So we locate that. It's either going to be up in this section here. If you last ran it, if that was the last report you ran from outside the games, it'll likely be up here. If it's not, as is noted there, go down to the SOMD Core Reports and click on Coach Sport Expirations. Okay, and then click Select. Okay, and as a reminder, to get to that, I went up to the Load Settings in this upper left corner. You're going to do this frequently, so I just want everybody to be familiar with this and comfortable with this. So now I'm going to run these reports and exports for the most part, in many cases. When we get to the athletes, we really can't do this, but using the SOMD HQ staff listing so that you can get a sense of it. Number one, they're short. There's only a few for each of these different reports, so it doesn't take an hour or extended time to run the report. But secondly, then there's not a whole lot of there's not a whole lot of personal information to begin with, but there's no question about security or whatever the case may be. So to run this report, you can take everything exactly as it is. The only thing that you should do is select the group that you want. And if those of you remember, since I think I personally trained almost all of you in GMS, there's a difference with when you're inside of a games, your county is called the delegation. When you're outside of the games, it's a group. And so that's why you're selecting the entrance by group. So if you're going for Allegheny County, if you check, when you find your category here, you can just check the one that's not indented. So here, if I was to click Allegheny County, you notice it selects all those underneath there. Any of the ones that are the ZAL, for the most part, with the exception, I think, of Baltimore City and Lower Shore, maybe Carroll County as well. These are all schools and with the IUS program. So if all you wanted was for Allegheny County, if all you wanted was the community program, I would take both the community program and the not registered as well, just to be safe, and it'll pull everybody through there. You could certainly take all of Allegheny County, but as I noted before, we're just going to go with the SOMD staff, so we'll leave that there. I would generally keep this entrance by type unchecked because that, unlike in summer games or when you're within a games where who you designate as a chaperone or who you designate as an assistant coach pretty much reflects their role. Typically this type that is here, and again, if you remember back to the original training as I was walking through with most of you way back when in many cases, the type could be, it's typically whatever that person was added to the database as. So a coach could be in there as a coach, could be in there as a volunteer, could be in there as a family member, could be in there in any of a number of ways. So generally speaking, when you're running this type of a report, I would leave that unchecked. So you'll note here that it's going to output it to the screen, and you just click print. And let's make that 100% and blow it up. Okay, actually, let's see if we can get that to a little bit bigger there. So you'll see what it has here is it lists, this is the, I have to change, I'll go in, I have to change the title of that. I didn't realize that it said concussion training. But this shows for, this is actually the coach sports certification, so I'll change the title there. I apologize for that error there. But it lists the individual and then lists the sport that they're certified in and the expiration date of that sport. Unfortunately, I'm sure there is a way to do this, but we have not had the time to consolidate it so that it has, for example, my name, and then just lists all, how many do I have? 5 certifications under there. This works. It gives you the information that's sorted there. So I can look very quickly and see what my expiration happens to be. This also, the way this is set up, is it will report it regardless of whether the certification is expired or is still good. So here it just happens that all of these are good, but it would report out those that had expired so you can see when they had that most recently. Okay. So again, we go to load settings, pick sports certification. Again, I will go in and change the title so that it's correct. That probably won't happen until tomorrow. And you'll be able to access that. Okay. Any questions on those, the steps for this? And then most of the steps when we're running reports are going to be very similar to this. So if you have any question on that now, if you could feel free to ask it. Again, you would need to unmute your phone. And then I would ask after you ask the question to go ahead and mute it again so that we have the background noise limited. Okay, hearing none, we'll go back. And so that's the way to do it as a report. And you saw that it was formatted, and that's how it comes through. We also have the option, we've created a means that you can export this as an Excel file or whatever. And we're going to use the SONA Sports Certification Records 2014 December of 02. And here's the steps we're going to go to. We're going to go to User Tools, Advanced Exporter. Again, just as we did within the reports, it's the same setting there. We're going to go to Load Settings in the upper left corner. And again, depending upon the last time was that you ran this, it's going to either be in the top section, in that recent section, or it will be under SOMD Core Exports. It's Core Reports up there, Core Exports here. So we're going to go to User Tools. Okay, and again, this is the main screen when you first log into GMS. Go to User Tools. You may not see all these different options here, but you certainly will see Advanced Exporter. Click on that. It opens up. We're going to go to Load Settings, and we're going to look for that. So it's not up in the top. I'm going to go down to reports or core exports, and the Sonos Sport Certification Records 2014 to 2012. So I'm going to go ahead and select that. Okay. Now, again, there's some different options that you have here. I would, generally speaking, take the defaults. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select the group, which is SOMD staff, so that we preserve and keep everybody's information quiet. You've got all these different options here. Well, let me run it for the first time, and then I'll show you some of the filters that we've got here. One of the things, when you use an export, the first time you run it, and actually each time you're going to want to do this, you're first going to have to designate what type of file type this. It won't say MS Excel or Microsoft Excel here. It'll ask you to choose that. Unfortunately, I can't get this back to that default because I've run so many exports. But you'll have a choice there. And if you click on the option that's there, you'll have the choice here of selecting Excel, DBF, or Microsoft Access. DBase and Microsoft Access are wonderful programs. I use them all the time, but again, most people are going to use Microsoft Excel. The other thing that you will need to designate will be the file location. Now, I have to be honest and tell you, I don't know what you have access to. I think you have a section on the K drive under area and then your individual reports. I'm going to go ahead, and I'm sure you don't mind, I'm going to put this into Baltimore County. This is a space to hold it. So if you are using these, you can do that. You could also, if you're hooked up through the remote connection, you could have this save to your local hard drive. However, experience has taught me when you are hooked up remotely and you do an export, for some reason, it takes a long time for it to close the file. It'll go through, it'll run and export everything, and then it, I won't say that it hangs, it's actually going through a process to close the file, but it could take 3 or 4 minutes to do that, whereas if you do it onto the network into your county's folder, it does it almost instantly. So I would recommend, assuming you don't have any trouble accessing the folders and then copying it to your hard drive, your local drive, generally speaking, a best practice is to save it to your county folder and then copy it to your drive. You can certainly do it directly to your drive, but again, just be aware that it may take a little longer to run. Okay, so I'm going to designate that as where I'm going to save it. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and click Export and see how quickly it just went. It's only 13 records. If you've never done an export before, you will always get this box here. You can either email this file. Actually, I've never used the email this file section, but you can open and view it, or you can delete it if you wanted to there. I'm going to go ahead and open and view it, and it opens up Excel. Whether you have Excel on your local computer or not, if you're hooked up through the network and you're using it, you have access to a copy of Excel. And if you remember, as I noted, back with exports as opposed to reports, it comes out unformatted. It does give you column headings, but it doesn't give you anything else. You can, if you're familiar with Excel, if you highlight them all, you can get your columns to spread out. I always like to bold my headers. It's just a force of habit. The code you may not need. It's there because it's a helpful component if we're using it for anything else. But you'll notice here it comes out. It gives you the group that they're in. I'm listed here as Baltimore County because that is one of, I actually started in GMS when I was still with Baltimore County at that time. But also it's pulling me because one of my other groups that I have assigned is SOMD HQ staff. But it lists for each person their name, we have their gender, their person type, age, and then the sports certification. So what you can also do, again, if you're familiar with Excel, is you can just go ahead and sort it by, let's go by name, and then I'm going to add a level and do it by sport. So I can find, so again, just sticking with me, it has my sports that I'm certified in. It gives the date that my first certification was registered or was entered in the system. And then it has the current expiration date. So those of you who know me know I'm a long-time track person. It's what I live and breathe. That and lacrosse, but we don't offer lacrosse currently. But yeah, so it has my original certification there way back in April of '81, and my current one is good through 2018. So it would have that for each person that's in here, and for each of their sports. So there should be, unless there's an error in the database, only one certification for each person for each sport. What we do when you take a new course that would update or extend your certification, we edit the record for that sport so you don't have 5 different sport certifications for track and field. You just have the one and we know where it is. This is just a description in case there's any question about what it is. It's the sport certification there. It has this information. If you've recertified, it gives you what notes what the recertification course is. In most cases, it's going to be either in other sport specific training, or it could be a coaching Special Olympics athletes, the recertification date, and the when the recertification will expire, which should be the same date as the expiration date unless we have a data entry error. In some cases, there might be some comments there as well. But you've got that. One of the nice things, what I prefer, in many cases, the Excel, and we'll use that because then you can, if I just wanted to look at mine or wanted to highlight that, I can highlight that in yellow. You can do whatever you want. You can hide columns. If, again, up to whatever your experience is. I don't care about gender or that or age. All I care about is this other stuff, so I can really quickly make a quick report custom down to what I want to fit in there. I'm hiding all this, but I could also delete this as well. Again, I'm not deleting it from the main template that used to create this. I'm just doing it in this copy of the file that was exported. So again, and you can do this as we go through. I'm not going to go through any of these little customizations for all of the different exports, but just want to give you the feel for that. So if you're comfortable in Excel and you want to play with it and get it to look like you want, you can certainly do this here. You could also do this if you are familiar and comfortable with Microsoft Word products or other things along those lines. You can do a mail merge. You can do whatever you want with this. This is the same concept through exports and such. It's a similar way. We're not going to go into it tonight, but you could do exports of emails or mailing addresses or whatever the case may be and use that for a mail merge to send stuff out as well. Again, it's all the whole concept. If you've never used the export function, it's an opportunity for you to do that here. One thing to also note, again, if you didn't notice already, it uses the old XLS format. Currently, it doesn't have the XLSX, which I think was started to be used in Office 2007, if I remember correctly. So it is somewhat older. That also means that it typically is going to be compatible with almost anything that you have that would open up an Excel file. Okay, so that's that. Let's not save that. In terms of some filters that you can use here, filters for that, you can decide, you know what, I just want to see those people. I'm sorry if I went too fast there. I clicked on under filters for SONA Sport Certification. I clicked on add, and I'm going to add sport as a filter, and I only want to see, I'm clicking include, I only want to see basketball certifications. Okay? Or I could say, you know what, let's not do basketball. Let's do track, bocce, aquatics, cheerleading, and softball. So those are the summer game sports. I just want to see, that's all I want to see for my group. Now, again, I'm doing SOMD staff, so it's going to be a limited number that are there. Typically, if you're going to run a report again, you're going to want to change the file name. Otherwise, as you'll see in a moment, you're in essence going to write over and replace the file that you just created with this new file. So you get a little warning here. I'm going to overwrite that existing one. I am, because these are all just sample files. So I'm going to go ahead and click that, open it, and we see here that for summer game sports, these are the folks who are certified in that, and when they're expert or who have had a certification at some point, and are there again. Of course, these would be for your area when you select that. Okay. And again, I'm not going to go through all the different customizations that you can do with that. So any questions on what I just did here in terms of doing an export as opposed to a report? And again, unmute your phone if you have a question. No? Okay. Let's go on. Okay, so that's SONA Sport Certifications. The trainings, and again, this report and export format we're going to do on is sort of the structure we're going to go through tonight. So, to do trainings, now these are all the different courses that we have on record as someone taking for them. So, in trainings, we're going to again go, this is outside of the games, we're going to go to reports, advanced custom, the load settings, and then we're going to locate this report either at the top if we ran it recently or under SOMD core reports. So, again, we're going to go to reports, advanced custom, load settings, and down here, coach trainings. There we go. Select that. Okay. And by default, again, it has it listed for SOMD staff. Again, you would go in and you would select your own area or your own group, as it were. I'm going to go ahead and print that. And get this big enough that you can see it. Okay. So again, this lists then for each person what they've taken and when. This is the date that they took that course. So if we go down here, Melissa Anger, she's listed here for several different basketball courses because she hosted several different basketball courses, coaching Special Olympics athletes, so on down the line. So you can get this. Again, this is the report format that you have here. I should also say that I'm kind of blowing past some basic customizations you can do within the reports, mainly because I want to make sure folks get the gist of it and can be functional when they get out of here, when they finish the session. If we, you have the option here of how you sort it and several other things that are there before you run the report. But that, again, can be a little bit different. The one thing I did want to show you is that for the trainings report, you can select a filter and say, I just want to see the folks who took classes, who's taken Train the Trainer, Special Olympics, coaching Special Olympics athletes, Train the Trainer session, again, just within staff. I click that, and I won't bother blowing it up here, but it lists the folks who have taken that and the date that they took it here. Okay. So that's the gist. Again, if you wanted to look and see what trainings your folks have had, just again go in and select your particular group type or group that you wanted, Allegheny, Anne Arundel, so on down the line, and you can run that report. The export version of this, again, there's a version for a report and a version to export, is Coach Training Records 2014-1202. And again, we're going to go to the advanced exporter, load settings, and then we're going to locate that report either in the top section or under SOMD core reports. So I'm going to go to User Tools, Advanced Exporter, and I'm going to go to Load Settings up here in the corner, and I'm going to go down to Coach Training Records 2014 to 2012. Open that up. I'm just going to let it go where it's at now. Again, this is SOMD staff strictly, so I'm going to go ahead and export that. I'm going to overwrite the file that I already had it listed as. Okay, and you'll notice we got here, again, an unformatted Excel file that you can open up. Again, it doesn't export it with any particular sorting involved. I don't think you can probably, you could create the sorting. I didn't bother with that. But you can sort it as you need to using the sort function. So if I wanted to do it by name and then by subject matter, you can get that. And again, you can see the courses that Nick's taken and completed and other ones along that line. Here's what Melissa Anger's taken, Tyler Buck, so on down the line. So you have that choice there. Again, and here it's in an Excel folder or Excel file, or it could be in an Access or a DBF or DBase format that you can go in and you can edit as you see fit. Okay. I'm not going to bother saving the changes there. If you did want to sort it, you could use this function here and do it. One of the challenges with here is it's extremely powerful in the sense that you can access almost any field to sort on, and that also means you can get lost in terms of figuring out what it is that you've got there. One other thing I will show just very quickly, again, this is only for those of you who are somewhat more experienced and comfortable in databases and such. You can add additional fields. Again, it's one of those things that is very powerful, but can also be overwhelming and confusing. But virtually any field in the database you can add to this. So this is all the these are all the different fields that are under the training heading. Again, for most folks here, I strongly recommend strongly recommend that you just use it as is until you're comfortable. Okay. Any questions on that component? Okay. Then the third of the main ones is, as was discussed at the area directors meeting on the 18th, and has been in some things that has been communicated out to folks. We are Special Olympics North America, and I believe Special Olympics International is adding a coach concussion certification requirement that all coaches need to go through. The purpose of tonight is not to go into the details on this. Again, it was discussed at the area directors meeting. We'll have some additional communications coming out in the next week or two with this. You'll also be receiving a copy on CD of the course that you can do. They can also do it online for free. But here is how you can track this information as it's added into GMS. There's only, I think, 5 or 6 that are in there right now, all staff, so it'll be pretty simple and straightforward here. But this is the same concept, the same processes are what you would do when you're doing it for your own area to look at that. So, again, for the reports, there's a report version and there's an export version. This is all outside of the games. Reports, again, we're going to go advanced, custom, so on. It's all the same stuff there, but we're looking for concussion training expirations here. So I'm going to go to reports, advanced custom, and load settings, and I'm going to go down to core concussion training expirations right there, and select that. It's got what we need here, and I'm going to go ahead and open that up, and so that you can see it. It gives the name of the individual, what the course was that was taken. All of these are the CDC online self-paced course, which is the same thing that's going to be on the CD-ROM for you. And then the expiration date. This is 3 years after the person has taken the course. We could certainly add some other stuff on here, but the expiration date seems to be the most important because this is valid for 3 years. So relatively straightforward. Just as was the case in all the other reports we've talked about so far, you can select your own county or your own area or group here based on using the category here or the checkboxes that are here for that. So relatively straightforward. Okay. And then for the export version, and I need to double check the name of it, so Coach Concussion Training 2015-05-07. So we're going to go to User Tools again, as we've done for all the exports, Advanced Exporter, Load Settings, and it's going to be down under Core Coach Concussion Training right there. I'm going to select that. Again, you have the option here of changing to your group. Just as is always the case with an export, you'd need to designate the format the first time you use it, which would be Excel or whatever, and you need to tell it what file it's going to go to. Again, I'm going to leave it as is. And I'm just going to go ahead and run it. Because I already have a file named in there, it's checking that. And open it up. And here we go. So it gives, in Excel formatted, it gives the names of the individuals and so on down the line, that this is Coach Concussion Training and the expiration date that's offered there. Okay. I don't know if there's really any filters. Well, you can, if you wanted to see the effective date and the created date are going to be almost exact. It should be the same. I don't know that there's a whole lot. Unlike with the sport training or the sport certification or the training where you can select the individual sports, there's probably not a whole lot of utility with that. So any questions on any of the three that we've covered so far, which was the core component for tonight that we wanted to be sure we got through, which is coach certification, our sports certification, the trainings, and then also the concussion certification, which will become more useful as we go forward. And again, if you have a question, please do unmute your phone. And you asking a question gives me an opportunity to take a sip of water, so it's a good thing if you have a question.
Nope. You're going to offer the opportunity.
No, it gets tiring talking all by myself. So go ahead, Frank.
Since it's being recorded, I didn't know if you wanted to wait till the end for some of the questions. But 2 points real quick is if you create the export, I strongly recommend that you just copy the spreadsheet that you create and paste that into the spreadsheet on your PC as a way of saving them more conveniently on your PC.
Oh, that's a great idea.
And I write mine to the same GMS output all the time and then just save it on my own. Basically, you can copy the whole spreadsheet, minimize the remote server, and go back to your own desktop, go into Excel and do a paste into a new spreadsheet, and then go back into the server.
That's great. Yeah, it saves you from having to save it two different places. You can just copy and paste it and so on if you're having any trouble. That's a great idea.
And did you want it at all, if people go and customize any of these, did you want to go into saving the file or wait till some later time?
Let's wait till some later time.
Okay.
So I think I've got it set up that hopefully, knock on wood, they can't write over my format, but they could save it as something new. But
okay.
Let's just leave it with that. And thank you. And for those of you who don't know, Frank is one of our, what I would call power users in GMS. So thanks, Frank, for chiming in on that. Then we'll go ahead for the other two that we wanted to talk about, which are the athlete medical and volunteer background. And we're going to look at these a little bit two different ways. One is inside the games, and then another version of how to access this outside the games. Now, there are, what we're showing you here and what we've shown you to date are some fairly simple, basic, straightforward ways to access this information. There are several other ways to get to it, which are increasingly, or I shouldn't say increasingly, but generally more complex than this sort of cookie-cutter way to get in there. So there are certainly ways that we can adapt this and so on, but just wanted to be sure that everybody's comfortable being able to access the information. So from within a games, and this report that we have here pulls both athlete medical and the volunteer background for this. So I'm going to go ahead. Let me go in here, back up, and I'm going to go into, let's go into summer games. And we're still processing some of the stuff that folks have turned in. So if something comes up that you think you've already sent in and it hasn't been updated yet, please don't panic. And we're going to go to, for the report, again, it's a core, there's another category when you're inside of a games called the core games reports is the category in there. And we're going to use this eligible roster of events and certification statuses. You should find this very familiar. You've seen all this before. And again, the process is almost identical. We can go to reports, advanced custom. Let it spin for a second because it's inside of games. Load settings, and now most of the other times we've had to go down to the section down here. I ran this recently, so it's right up here. I'm going to go with the either one. I'm not sure what the difference is. Clearly I edited this twice, but we'll go with that one there. I'm going to select that. And I'm going to, unfortunately there is no staff delegation in here. So I'm just going to go ahead and pick Allegheny County. I don't think there's anything secretive that's in here. But this is how you generate the same report. I'm not going to blow it up so that it's not as easy for folks to read it. But this is a similar report, a report that you've seen that we send out after some of the deadlines. You'll notice here, again, you have the athlete's name. Then there's a section here that'll have the volunteer screening or the volunteer background expiration date, the volunteer minor expiration date, and the athlete expiration date, medical expiration date. It's grouped by first your not registered categories, and then by sport. That's how it's set up by default. And you go through each page. So you can run this on your own if you wish within this. You can do this within summer games. You can do this within the sports training. This template, when you're doing within games, sometimes you can, for reports, you can save it as what's called a cross games template that you can have access to it from any games, and it's available to run within any games. And this is set up in that case, in that structure, that setup there. When we get to exports, unfortunately, I'm not sure why they did it, but they didn't add that feature for exports. So it's only where we've created and saved an export within the games that you can access that easily. There are some other ways, but that's the only way you can do it easily. So again, this is a familiar report you've all seen, and sent it out to you all with individual sports a couple weeks ago following the training registration deadline. The matching version of that for an export, if you go to Exporter, and it's certification status within games, and I did a little update to it just today to make sure that everything is fine. Let's again go by delegation and Allegheny County. We would just do an export and open and view this. And again, it lists the individuals, name, date. Then now, because it does not format stuff, it pulls the name of the field from the database. So you actually wind up with 3 expiration dates. And I don't think I put it on this slide what each one is. It's on the next slide, I believe. The first one, though, this is the medical expiration date. This is the volunteer expiration date. And then the third one is the volunteer minor expiration date. So you've got athletes, coaches, so on down the line that are in here. One bug that we have not found a way to get around as yet is if somebody is listed as an HOD, for some reason, when you do this export, it pulls the role as athlete. Not sure why. Have tried to find a reason why it does that. I'm sure it has to do something with some of the settings that are in there, and we just have not found a way to get around that. But everything else does well. Let's not save that. Okay. So again, the report that you want is the certification status within games. On the next page, I'm pretty sure I have that. Yeah, we have them here. I'll copy that over to that slide again. But it's the first expiration column is the athlete medical, the second expiration column is the volunteer background, and the third expiration column is the volunteer minor expiration date. So you can print them easily. Okay, so that's within a games doing both. Then from outside of a games, there's 2 different reports, a report and an export for medicals, and a report and an export, actually 2 reports and 2 exports for the volunteer. And I'm going to slide this over here. So we're going to go within, we're going outside of the games again. So we're still in summer games, and here we are out here. And we're going to go, sorry that's hiding this for a second, but just as we have done for reports, we're going to go to Reports, Advanced Custom. Okay, we're going to go to Load Settings again. And here, we're going to select Athlete Medical Expirations 2015. Okay, and let me pull this back over here. So again, I'm going to, because there are no, other than Adam Hayes, I think he's the only athlete who's listed as part of headquarters, I'm going to go ahead with Allegheny County. And for this, again, this is a report that we're doing here. We go ahead and print that and blow that up. And it gives the athlete, age, so on, and then the date of expiration for them. if it has somebody here, actually, I'm sorry, I should have selected. I'll have to change that slightly. It pulled a volunteer there as well. But it has their expiration dates that are there. Okay. One of the defaults that's on here that's checked off right now, but you can uncheck it, is it's only showing those that are not expired. So if you want to see everybody, you can uncheck that. And let me select just athletes now. Go ahead if we do that again. And so here is another way. So this pulls everybody who's in there who had a medical and what their expiration date or when their last medical was. That may be of use to you. It may or may not. Probably not in a report format, but it may be useful at some point for you to do that as an export. Let's see. In terms of other filters that you can do, if you wanted to do a report, say, of when your athletes whose medicals are going to expire, you can, again, if you go back again, I'm going to add filters, expiration date, and let's go with between. And so let's see for Allegheny whose medical is going to expire between May 1 of 2015, and let's go through fall sports. So October 31st. So you could print that. And so it looks like Allegheny County will not have anybody expiring during that time. Let us see. So kudos to Allegheny. Let's go a little further ahead through winter games. Okay. So it looks like you'll have a bunch that'll be expiring after fall sports. So this can give you a quick report out of when they're going to expire, and you can plan ahead. Again, listed alphabetically. This may be helpful to you in this report format. We can get exactly what we just did as an export as well, which may be even more useful. Okay. So to do it as an export, again, as we've done before, we go to User Tools, Advanced Exporter. We're going to do Load Settings, and go down to Core Reports, and I'm sorry, export of med. Actually, for this, we combine the medical volunteer status into a single report for here. So click on that. Okay, and let's just look at athletes and Allegheny again. And again, I'm going to overwrite a file because I already had it existing. And we open up that. And this is listing all of the athletes that are listed under Allegheny County. Again, it did pull folks that are in the IUS program. And it literally pulls everybody who was listed for Allegheny County and their most recent expiration date. If we wanted to suppress that, let's say we didn't want all of those. We just want the folks in Allegheny County who are in the community program, which would be the community program here, and then potentially some in this not registered if they never got moved, if they hadn't gotten moved out of that. And we're going to go ahead. And actually, you know what? Let's if we go under these flags, we can eliminate anybody who's listed as inactive or deceased or banned. Not that I think anybody in Allegheny County has been banned. That'll limit it a little bit. And we'll overwrite. View this. And again, we've got fewer here. Now, there are some that came up under the Interscholastic Unified Sports Program, but they're coming in as an additional group. They're still listed as part of Allegheny County's community program, either as their main group or as an additional group. And it lists all of them that have what their medical expiration date is. So again, this could be something that's useful to you as you wish. As was noted on the slide, the first expiration date here is their medical. Then this is the volunteer, and this is the volunteer minor. So without going back to the slide, you would use almost the exact same process here if you wanted to get everybody who's not an athlete. All those are checked off, so everybody else that's in here. If we wanted to run the same thing, okay, so this lists all of the non-athletes. Oops. Yeah. And it lists, whoops. There we go. Again, this is the second expiration date is their volunteer expire, and then this is if they're a volunteer minor and such. So this is one way that you can export and have available here all of your non-athletes as well. Of course, you could do a full export that has both of them, both your athletes and your non-athletes, in a single report. It'll put them all in there, or a single export rather, and you can utilize that however you see fit. So with that going, this is the, we just did the export version of that. That's listed here. And again, this has the reminder that each expiration that's listed there. We did set up 2 other reports for volunteers. The way that the reports have to operate, unfortunately, we can't pull easily and get the both the volunteer background expiration and the minor expiration on the same report, unless we do sort of from outside of the games. At least not easily. We can certainly play with it some more if we want to. But so there's 2 different versions of this report that's available there. So as we've done before, we're going to go back to the main listing here. We're going to go to reports, advanced custom, load settings, and we're going to go to core reports down here, and volunteer background expirations. And then the other one is volunteer minor expirations. So we're going to go ahead and click on that. And let's just go with Allegheny again. We run it. And very similar to some other reports that we've seen, it lists everybody, and this is their expiration date over here as you go through. And again, we just saw a moment ago how to do this as an Excel export, which in many cases I generally will find personally the Excel version somewhat easier. But for those folks who aren't necessarily very comfortable with Excel, it may or may not be as easy for you. Just as we saw when we looked at the report version for the medical with the volunteer version or volunteer background, we can similarly look at the expirations, and we want to see those. Let's see, we want to see who's going to expire between May 1 and December 31. Go ahead and save that and run it. And Allegheny, you are right on top of your stuff. So there are 2 folks. Peter Angarita, that actually may be a ghost record. Al Angarita, who is our is with the our firm that handles our IT work, puts in when he's doing some tests, creates some records. So this may be, you may not actually have a Peter Angarita working with you, Dottie. So this may be a record for Al, but it looks like Jody Beal has hers. I know you're on top of that, getting that taken care of for her since it's expiring shortly. But that's how you can do it if you just want to see who's going to expire within a certain window. We just go through that, and again, what we went through is we selected the filters for the volunteer background, selected expiration date, and so we want those that are between certain dates there. Okay. And again, you could print that then or save it as a PDF. And I think that's it. That's what I had to cover, and we're almost right at the hour. Here again, as we put in most of the slides here, your primary contact for this stuff would be your regional sport directors, Nick Anderson, Melissa Anger, Sam Hodap. For those of you who aren't who haven't dealt with folks, Sam, Melissa, and Nick are both very good at GMS. Sam is probably the second best person here at headquarters, right behind me. So can also provide, to those of you who work with Sam, he has a great deal of knowledge in GMS and can be very helpful to you as well. So if you're in a real pinch and can't get a hold of anybody else, you may want to try Sam. But please do, your first person that you want to go to is your regional sports director. So that said, we've got about 5 minutes left if anybody has any remaining questions on anything that we've covered.
Mike, can we get these slides?
Yes, I said at the very beginning that we will send these out to you along with the link to the webinar. They probably will go out tomorrow morning.
Okay, cool. I dialed in a few minutes late.
That's okay. Yeah, I mean, our standard in most cases is we're going to send you the slides afterwards no matter what. So, yeah, it'll go to everybody who's on the call tonight as well as to the area director and area director support distribution lists. Okay, any other questions? Okay, I mean, hopefully the way we have it set up, where it's mostly the same basic steps, and you're just selecting a different report, made it as simple as possible for folks. One of the big things to keep in mind is that some of the reports are only available inside of, not some of them, some reports are only available inside of games, and others are only available outside of the games. So if you can't find it where you're looking for, maybe either go into a games or come out of the games and see what you've got there. So,
Mike?
Yes.
Would you consider in your templates adding the email as an additional field for everybody?
We can. The challenge with that is that adds another level, and the email will vary based on what the address is, whether it's a personal address or et cetera. But we certainly can add that in for the exports, sure, and just put as a default there the primary email.
For the volunteers, that would work very well. The athletes, it's more of a difficult issue. Do you send it to the athlete, to their agency, to their home?
Sure.
etc.
Probably won't get to do that till tomorrow, but I will add that into the reports with the same names. We won't change the titles on them, so that'll just be an extra field that'll be on the export that you do. At some point in the future, we can certainly go through and do some more demonstrations of and have additional reports and such for that. So in terms of how to pull all your addresses and how to get to the athlete versus a family member versus whatever, we can certainly do that at a later time. But I'll go ahead and add the primary emails for you. That's a good idea, Frank.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Hey, Mike, this is Stu Wolf. I
Hi,
have
Stu.
one big question. I
Sure.
have a template that I use for my medical coordinator and volunteer coordinator, and it includes the name and addresses that I export. Is there a disclaimer I have to put on the bottom of that?
Your medical person that you're sending it to has gone through the screening?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean...
Yes, both have.
Yeah, I mean, as long as they understand the responsibilities of their position, I mean, it's not going to hurt to put a disclaimer. I'm not going to sit here and discourage you from doing that. I don't know that it's 100% necessary. If they've gone through there and they understand the sensitivity and just as with a medical or whatever, that they would need to destroy it when they're done.
Oh no, this is a report for expiring medicals,
right?
So they can contact them, or athletes or volunteers.
Right. Yeah, I don't know if that's terribly sensitive information. Their address. It's one of the things. If you've noticed, we've eliminated birth dates in most of the reports where we just have an age. We thought about getting rid of age in most of these, but they're in some counties or some areas, particularly Baltimore City and Prince George's County, but in some others, I'll use Washington County as an example with the Barnharts. There are several people with the same name. And so we need to have some kind of distinction in there for the age, so we left that in. But for the most part, I don't think there's anything here that's terribly sensitive, other than just in general, we should be careful with any information that we have.
Great. Well, thank you.
But no, it's a good thing to think about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no. Oh, I say thank you for this because I've been doing a lot of this with custom column.
Oh, okay.
getting close to the same for my coaches.
Okay, great. Okay. If there's no other questions, we'll go ahead and call it a night. Hope everybody enjoys. And on Saturday and Sunday, in addition to our competitions, be looking forward to Maryland, Towson, and Johns Hopkins in the NCAA lacrosse championships, playing throughout the area here. So for those of you who don't know, Towson won last night and has advanced. They're playing Notre Dame on Saturday, I think. So thanks much, and look forward to talking with you all in the future. Have a great night.